Okay, welcome to the first of two individual, or as they're called here, lab go-to sessions for the week. Um, this is going to be mostly a welcome session. In theory, we're supposed to be meeting twice a week for 2 hours. I try to keep things around an hour and 15 minutes, sometimes less. I find that when we go the full 2 hours, I start losing students around the 1 hour mark, so I do try to keep things tight and focused. Today's session, by nature, is a little bit briefer, just because it's more of a welcome session, a sort of introduction to what you're going to encounter in this class. Anyway, there's my name, right? David Sussman. I'm your instructor. Um, if some of you may have already sent me messages that I've responded to. You'll notice that I always just sign off with my first name. I'm completely comfortable being called that. I know Full Sail presses the professionalism angle pretty hard, and I do support that fully. So you've probably been taught to refer to your instructors as Mr. or Miss. That's perfectly acceptable, but I do allow permission for people to use my first name. I'm completely comfortable with that. Just keep in mind that for future courses, you should probably follow protocol unless you get specific instructions from your teacher saying that it's okay to use their name on a first name basis. Okay, so welcome to DGL, Digital Literacy at Full Sail University. Here's what I'm going to go over today. Some welcome stuff. I'm going to offer some tips for success, how to not just make it through this class, but to do well in the course. I'm going to give some information about me. Then we'll talk about the course itself, like what does digital literacy mean. I'll remind you of what we're working on this week. There are two graded assignments. And then we'll get into the digital identity, both what that means and what you're supposed to be already working on for Wednesday. It's Tuesday afternoon, so if you haven't started, that's fine. It's due Wednesday. The first part of it, that is due Wednesday by midnight, so we'll talk a little bit about what's required. And then if people have questions, they can ask them at the end. You can feel free to comment in the chat as well as we go along. There are only about 8 of you or 9 of you in the room, so I can try to keep an eye open for things that appear in the chat. First of all, welcome. This is your first course at Full Sail University. I'm guessing that all of you are brand spanking new. Occasionally we get a couple people who just are taking it for the second time because something happened last time and they are retaking it again. But most of you are probably brand spanking new. So first of all, welcome. I'm excited to have you in this class. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. Digital literacy is great because it's kind of the perfect introduction course to Full Sail, because you'll be using digital tools throughout your time here, so why not get accustomed to this early? I have a variety of students. By the way, I also teach in the English department. I'm officially a member of the English department. I teach digital literacy as well, and I'd say that 2/3 to 3/4 of my students, whether they're in digital literacy or in English, which is a month 4 course in people's sequence, most are online students. So digital tools becomes even more important because, I mean, if you're taking this class living in Idaho or California or Tennessee or Kentucky. By the way, feel free as I'm chatting just to go ahead and type where you're currently residing, like where are you sitting right now in terms of city and state in the chat. Okay, so one local person so far, Lakeland, Florida, Joshua Young. Josh, are you a campus student? Lakeland's a little bit far-ish from Orlando. It's not super far, but it's not super close either. It's difficult to explain. Okay, we got a California person here. Awesome. I saw Pennsylvania, South Carolina. Very nice. Yeah, Josh responded. It's an hour and a half away. Yeah, I couldn't remember. I wanted to say that Lakeland's about an hour outside of Orlando. Another Florida person. Okay, so we're pretty well represented. And remember, we have a bunch of people who, for work reasons, for family reasons, aren't in this session live, and they're from all over as well. Okay, so that's the importance, right? I mean, if you're going to be taking this class online, then learning digital tools is kind of super important. I should also note that I think it's an exciting time to begin work at Full Sail University. I've been here for 20 months now, So in January, it will officially be 2 years. I'm excited to be here. It's so much fun working with students here because they are typically very, very creative. And this is the kind of school that caters to them. And so some of our projects, like the one you're going to be working on for this Wednesday, is an example of that. So yeah, it's a lot of fun to work with students. And you're in the right place. I hope you're in the right place. Actually, I didn't mean to go to that slide so quickly. Full Sail is a lot of fun to work for. It's a lot of fun for students. And I'm excited to work with you all. Okay, tips for success. Basic stuff like ask questions, right? The good the good news is because everybody's brand spanking new, I'm sort of their contact point, even for things that I'm not always able to answer. But I become the sort of go-to person for questions, and that's fine. I probably receive a dozen notifications or messages per day that I try to answer as quickly as possible. If you watch my welcome video, there's sort of a joke, although it's an honest joke that appears in the video where I explain that I have a lot of free time because it's not that I don't have a lot of work to do, I do, but most nights I'm just sitting around. So even though I have official office hours, I'm often checking for messages even when I'm technically off schedule. So, for example, at 10 p.m. last night, even though my day was officially over at 5:30 p.m., I was responding to people's messages. That doesn't mean you'll always get such a quick turnaround. I mean, there might be times where I'm busy or that I'm out or that I just don't get around to it. But usually I'm checking for people's questions pretty quickly. Actually, I'm going to get away from this slide thing for a second and show you the Full Sail platform. Right. So here's our course. This is actually the instructor's view, but it's very, very similar to what you see on your end, right? That you have the activities listed in order, with due dates assigned, so you know what's upcoming for week 1, and they're even categorized, right? So here's everything for week 1, week 2, and so on. Important things to keep in mind here about the interface is that, okay, I'm the instructor, so up here I have a thing called students. You have something I think that's called people. And if you click on it, you'll see all members of the class, including me. And if you click on my icon, or I think it's my photo actually, that's where you can check to see when my official hours are, meaning that you'll know that I'm online during those times. You have to click on my photo, and I forget what you click on. I think maybe contact or about. There's some tab you have to click on once you click on my photo. Just click around. There's only like 2 or 3 tabs, and one of them reveals details about my office hours, which are basically Monday through Friday from about 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. So I keep pretty traditional banker's hours. I do try to check for messages over the weekend too, so it's not like I'm completely MIA on Saturdays and Sundays. Oh, and if you do need to send me a message, send it to me through the envelope thingy here, which is an actual message system. Because here's what happens. Okay, let me see if I can duplicate this. Like, let's go into one of these activities, like your digital identity. And of course, this could take forever to load. Okay, good. Some people have already posted. Reminder me that I'll have to check this stuff out. Sometimes you're in the thing and you'll leave me a comment. The problem is that anything that's just a comment gets sent to this little global icon here, which on certain days can be huge. Like right now the number is 23, meaning I have 23 things waiting for me. And the 23 notifications just tell me whenever a student does anything. So if a student submits an assignment, I get a notification. If a student makes a comment in a discussion board, I get a notification. This is a complicated way of saying that if you just leave me a comment, sometimes it's easy to miss because it gets buried within all the other stuff here. But if you send me a direct message, then it lights up on the little envelope icon, and then I know I have a message waiting for me to respond to. I try to make sure that I'm not missing any comments that are left for me, but anything important needs to be sent as a direct message, not a comment. I've noticed in the chat for some reason my audio is cutting out for some people, but it's sounding like for whatever reason, Josh, it's on your end. I'm not sure why that would be. You might try closing down any unnecessary programs, or it just might be your internet connection is intermittent. I don't know, but I think other people are hearing me just fine. There'll be a recording of the session. Okay, so that's kind of the big thing here. Mostly, I think the FSO platform is pretty intuitive, but it's important to know how to get in contact with me and how to send me a message directly. Okay, so let's go back to our tips for success. Attend, watch all go-to sessions. The go-to sessions can seem a bit complicated because there are 3 that you're supposed to be either attending or watching every week. One is called a global session. It's not hosted by me. It's hosted by one of the senior members of the DGL staff. That's a session that's held for all DGL students. So if you've already attended a global session live, I can't remember if the first one's happened already or not, but you're probably in a room with like 100 to 200 other people, not 8 like we have today. Those are the global sessions, and those, after you finish the session, there's an attendance link you'll be taken to that you need to fill out. In addition to that, every week there are 2 individual sessions with me, so we're having one of those right now. Okay, those are two per week. I don't have an attendance link. Okay, I don't take attendance. Mostly, I encourage people to attend the sessions because A, I try to make them fun. Sometimes we'll talk about individual topics, but also because, as I explained at the beginning of the session, lots of times when we're approaching a big assignment, I'll actually walk students through the steps involved to complete the assignments. So this Thursday, for example, I'll be doing that with your first major assignment that's due Sunday. And so students who attend the lab sessions, the individual sessions, just tend to do better on assignments because they've already seen it kind of happen somewhat in real time. O'Shane, or I hope I'm saying that right. How can we get the recorded videos? Well, after the session is over, it needs to be processed. That usually takes about an hour. And then I'll just send it out as an announcement. Okay, so you'll see a little notification in your envelope icon. And, I'll say something like, here's the link for this week's session. I have no idea why I put ask questions twice. Maybe because it's super important. Oh yeah, that was the joke. I repeat it 3 times. Read all materials carefully, especially the assignment sheets. Okay, one of the dangers is because I do sometimes walk students through certain assignments, they walk away thinking, oh, now I have it all covered. I don't need to read the assignment sheets. But the assignment sheets contain even more detailed information. I try to touch on most of the basics and the core requirements, but you should be reading the assignment sheets as well, so you know absolutely what needs to be done. And a final tip, be positive. Okay, this is your first month here. The reason I love teaching this course is because it is a month 1 course. Don't get me wrong, in month 4 when I teach English, the students are still full of life and creativity. But you know what? They don't message me as much. They don't leave comments as much because by month 4 they're sort of old. They think it's old hats. They're sort of used to the thing. But teaching in month 1 is fun because students are so excited and they have lots of questions. They have lots of comments. They're ready to participate fully in the discussion boards, and that's really nice to see. So my final tip is just to hold on to that energy and to be excited and let it carry you through the program. Full Sail is a great place to be, and I'm not just trying to sell it. I came out here not quite sure what I was going to expect because my background is more in traditional classroom teaching, so I wasn't quite sure, because there are a lot of for-profit schools out there that give good places like Full Sail a bad name. Maybe you've even heard from these sorts of people, but I can tell you after being here for almost 2 years and seeing how the departments work and the quality of the teaching and the integrity that's behind every department in terms of planning, in terms of organizing, that we are legit and we don't just rubber stamp people through and give them diplomas. You'll notice this even here in DGL that there's quite a bit of work to do. I don't think it's a terribly difficult course, but there is a lot to keep up on, and there is a pretty strict requirement to be putting forth quality effort and really kind of tackling each assignment with gusto. Someone in the comments says, I noticed this. Some said they're required to attend, but is it okay to miss? Yeah, Nick. I mean, it's your choice. I'm not going to be... like right now, I don't have a sheet of paper writing down who's here and who isn't. and getting mad if they're not here. So if another time the go-to session just doesn't work for you, or for whatever reason you're just worked a double shift and you really need to sleep, yeah, you can make the choice to watch the video instead. That's why we do it. Okay, some facts about me. Okay, there's my there's my photo. Yes, I often get confused on the streets for Channing Tatum. People ask me to sign autographs all the time. But here's some quick facts, okay? 15 years of teaching experience, mostly in the traditional classroom. So I've taught at the University of Alabama, Ohio University, the University of Missouri. I taught at a private school for 1 year in Missouri as well, a community college. So I've kind of bounced around all over the place a little bit. My specific interests are film, music, and creative writing. I've taught Introduction to Film. I've taught creative writing, so these are 2 degree programs here at Full Sail. Music, I'm not as much of an expert as some of you who are probably here to study music, but I did take piano lessons as a child and I still play. So this is great because my interests happen to connect really, really powerfully with what people come here to study. And you're going to find that your instructors do as well. Even when you get to specific programs or courses like DGL, like Psychology of Play, which I think you'll take next month, or like English in month 4, you'll be surprised that all of your instructors have pretty broad interests, meaning we can talk about just about anything, whether it's television, video games, film, music, right? It's not just that we have passing knowledge. It's usually that we're deeply interested in these fields, and that's part of the reason why we're here at Full Sail. Yeah, then they're the 2 jokes, right? Okay, and there's the stuff I just went over. Places that I've taught, courses that I've taught, so English comp, literature, business writing, creative writing, introduction to film, and digital literacy. So yeah, I'm pretty much prepared to handle whatever questions you can throw at me. Okay, now let's switch focus and talk a little bit about digital literacy, or as I say, DGL on FSO at FSU. Okay, FSO stands for Full Sail Online, and FSU actually probably is more appropriate for Florida State, but it could also stand for Full Sail University. So when you were enrolling in this class, when you found out this was the first class you were going to take, and you can either raise your hand, there should be a little hand icon to the left of your control panel if you're brave enough to speak, or you can use the chat box below to type your comments. But when you saw the words digital literacy, like what did that mean to you? What do you expect a course in digital literacy to be about? There are no right or wrong answers here. Any thoughts? Digital literacy. What does that sound like to you? What does that make you think of? What could this course possibly cover? Even though many of you probably have taken a sneak peek. Okay, someone's got a hand up, or someone did have a hand up. Okay, who is it? Joshua, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you right now so you can go ahead and speak. Okay, no, that's awesome. I'm going to go ahead and be rude and mute you again. But yeah, I think that's a huge part of it, right? Because there are actually, let me see what other people said in the chat room. I have no idea. And someone's just said digital world. Yeah, I think Josh has kind of like a big half of it. I'd even say more than half of it, because sometimes there's this idea that digital literacy is just about learning tools. And that's certainly part of it. We'll teach you how to use specific bookmark tools. We'll teach you how to kind of, use some other kind of cool things like how to access materials in the library, how to find images that you're allowed to use from allowable sources, and just instead of pilfering whatever you want from the internet. But it's not just about digital tools. Okay? Yeah, Josh has said this was covered in the global session. That's okay. But the other big half of it is not just the tools, but how to use them responsibly and effectively, right? because people can learn how to use software. People can learn how to use the internet in different ways. But that doesn't mean that you're an effective digital citizen. So a big part of this course will not just be about the tools, but about this idea of digital citizenship, what it means to be part of, this world where technology is no longer just an option. It's just something we have to deal with. So we should keep that in mind and know how to deal with it responsibly. So I think those are the big two components, right? Tools and using those tools effectively. Let me take a quick sip of water here. So that's going to be the focus this month. I think my slides, hold on, my slides are a bit out of order. Hold on, bear with me. Okay, we're back on course here. So there are 2 assignments this week. I'm going to talk about the, darn it, I moved the wrong slide. You know what? Screw it. I'll just wing it. There are 2 great assignments this week. That's the slide I wanted to move. The digital identity assignment, which is the first part of it's due this Wednesday. It's a discussion board activity. It requires you to post your digital identity project by Wednesday at midnight Eastern. And then you have until Sunday to respond to at least 2 of your classmates' efforts. The second grade activity, which is your first sort of major assignment, is called the Exploring Digital Literacy activity, which includes, it's basically an exercise in defining terms and bookmarking websites using Digo. I'm going to talk about that specifically on Thursday. It's not a difficult assignment, but it's sort of something that I prefer to walk students through. So today we're just going to focus here on what we're doing for the activity that it's open now, but the first part is due by tomorrow at midnight and ends officially on Sunday. Okay, so now everything is out of order. You know what? I'm dragging you down here. Actually, I'm going to get away from this. Let's look. Best way to look at this is an example. Okay. Essentially, you have to read the Prensky article, right, on digital natives versus digital immigrants. And using that article, it should inspire you to come up with your own unique term for how you would describe yourself. By the way, did people find the Prensky article powerful or still relevant? It was written over and published over 10 years ago, right? It's from the early 2000s. Does it seem out of date or does it seem relevant? Nick says it's super powerful. Yeah, I agree, by the way. Oh, Nick said that, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's weird how prescient it is. By prescient, I mean how almost forward-thinking it is. Because you would think a lot has happened in the last dozen years, and a lot has. And yet, the information is still, I think, super relevant. Yeah, and Chanda agrees. Okay, most people seem to have liked the ideas in the article. But one of the big things that it points out is that there's this divide right now between people who tend to be older. They don't have to be older, but oftentimes they are, especially when we're talking about the teaching environment. People like me, and people who just sort of grew up with technology all their lives and don't realize anything differently. And the need for especially educators to sort of reach out and make that sort of effort to be more involved with technology. And so one of my questions to you is, have you noticed this with your previous schooling experiences? Has there been this sort of divide where teachers, or it doesn't even have to be teachers, but maybe other family members, other adults, didn't quite seem to be inhabiting this world of 2014 as much as maybe people your own age are? By the way, I'm assuming that all of you are young, but that's not always true. We have Full Sail students who are older, so I don't want to make that assumption. But many tend to be under 30. Joseph says yes, his family. Josh says he's failed several courses because of it. Okay, yeah, good. Yeah, a lot of people saying the same thing. That you've seen this, right? And I have a guilty confession to make. I was kind of that teacher for the longest time. I mean, what do? You walk into this classroom at a major university. It's not set up for technology at all. And so you're just facing students and desks, and you take out your book, and you use, well, they don't have chalkboards anymore, but you use the whiteboard, and at most maybe there's a place to hook up your laptop so you can briefly show, a basic PowerPoint presentation. But it doesn't really go beyond that, and especially in very traditional courses like English, which is typically resistant to technology. Yeah, it tends to be really, really old school. And one of the great things about Full Sail is that we sort of, it's not that we reject traditional teaching or the value of learning, but that we really do try to use technology as much as possible. In part because we just have to with so many online students, but even when we teach in the classroom here at Full Sail, I teach in the classroom as well here, to use as many digital tools as possible. So we're not just standing up there and lecturing. So we're not just telling people to open their books to such and such page. It means that we create things like welcome videos, or we host go-to sessions, things like that, or we create assignment sheets that are visually interesting instead of just plain text on a page. And so the Prensky article really, I think, gets into a lot of this stuff, which is why it's powerful. And so your digital identity project for this week is for you to be sort of inspired by the article and come up with your own term. So instead of just saying, oh, I'm a digital native or I'm a digital immigrant, because those might be too much polar opposites, can you find a unique digital term that captures you? And what I have showing up here on the screen is one woman's project from last month. Okay, which actually is one of the more, I mean, don't get me wrong, they're all great, but this one's really impressive. She took a picture of herself shooting a picture, so it has that weird kind of doubling quality where we're watching her and she's watching us. I like that touch. And it's surrounded by keywords, right? The things that represent her interests and what she's a part of. And if we get down to her explanation, you'll see she's described herself as digitally enhanced. That's her unique term that she came up to describe who she is, digitally enhanced. And as you can see, she's written a pretty robust paragraph explaining her identity. So that's kind of what you're doing. For Wednesday by midnight, you're going to come up with a project. It can be visual. It can be, I'm going to go through the options later, but you can create a word cloud. You can do a combination of image and text like this woman has done. You can do some sort of sound recording. You can do some sort of film or slideshow presentation. The only rule is that you can't use photos that aren't your own, because we'll get into copyright issues in week 4. But for now, because students don't quite know where to go to use allowable photos for this first project, we say that excuse me, any images you use should be your own, or the images that are provided by, let's say, the web tool that you're using. Let's see in the chat, Joseph says the way the world works now revolves around technology. Schools are ordering tablets. Yeah, schools are getting better, getting much better, especially even like elementary schools and things like that. Sometimes it's at the university level that things are a little bit slow depending on the class. So this is the gist of what you're doing, and if I scroll through it, you can see other people's projects from last month. Not all of them. Like here's an example of a kind of a word cloud or word collage. Let's see, what else is there here. Right, here's someone, I don't know what tool he used to create this, but he calls himself a digital restorer. So there's his, this was really in depth. Okay, so lots of people have fun with it. And basically at this level, you do the best you can. You're not being graded so much on like how awesome I think your artistic talent is. I'm just mostly grading on the effort you've put in to come up with your own unique term, coming up with a somewhat rich or robust paragraph of explanation, and stuff like that. And then you have until Sunday to respond to 2 other people's efforts and give them feedback, point out what's working well, all that good stuff. Okay, so what I thought I'd do is kind of explain my digital identity. I don't have an actual project up, so I thought I would just explain it in this go-to session. And I like to call myself a digital adapter. And what I have here is a picture from the 1970s. because I was born in 1971. And if I do the math real quickly, let's see, 1971, 2014, that means I'm 25. Josh, where did you come up with 43? That's a lie. That's that's libel. Yeah, okay, it's true. 43 is the correct answer. Okay, so I was born, 43 years ago. So old, right? So I can remember things like when frozen dinners looked like this. They came in aluminum foil trays and were covered with aluminum foil, and you'd stick them in the oven, and they'd take like 40 minutes to cook. And even though they were the worst tasting things on the planet, you'd get so excited about it because if it's I don't know, a cold wintry night in 1978, it just, I don't know, it seemed somehow special or space age to put this completely prepared meal in the oven and wait 40 minutes for it to come out. It seemed sort of magical. Now, of course, we just grab something and stick it in the microwave, and in 6 minutes we have a meal. But I'm old enough to remember, yeah, when frozen dinners look like this. Chanda mentions freedom fries. Yeah, I remember that. That was that dealt with the Iraq War, so that's probably about a dozen years ago, where we got mad at France for not supporting us in the war, and wanted to rename French fries as freedom fries. I remember when television sets looked like this, where you had to get up and turn the knob to change channels, and you didn't have very many channels to choose from. You had NBC, ABC, and CBS. In Chicago, we had WGN, and then you had PBS. That's it. I remember when computers looked like this, right? That's a 5 1/4 floppy disk. Later, what was called a 3 1/2 floppy came along. This was what a cell phone looked like, right? This was the iPhone before there was an iPhone. This was my portable music device, right? This was like the iPod before the iPod. But things have changed, right? We don't have that stuff anymore. We have cool stuff like what's showing on the screen. We have tablets and smartphones and flat screen high definition televisions and PS4s and what else am I forgetting? Androids and Nooks and Xbox One. Yeah, we have all this cool stuff. Like, times have changed. I mean, don't get me wrong, for someone of my parents' generation, they saw some things too. My dad's old enough to remember the switch from radio to television, and certainly small developments happened over time. But man, does technology just fly. I mean, even if you thought you were hip and current 10 years ago, think of what's come since then, right? The internet existed, but there's so much you can do now with social media and online commerce and digital downloads. And, I don't even need to leave my house because I can just, I don't need to rent a film usually because I can just bring up Netflix on my HD television and find something to watch. I mean, it's a completely different world, and it's going to keep changing. So the reason I call myself a digital adapter is because I don't think I'm neither a digital immigrant nor a digital native, right? Like, I'm not a technophobe. I like technology. I'm working now on speaking to you through my MacBook Pro. I've got my Android tablet, I've got my Android smartphone, I've got my PS3, I haven't upgraded to a PS4 yet. So I'm no technophobe, and yet I still don't feel like I know as much as maybe some of you do. 2 years ago, I finally got on Facebook, and I thought, wow, I've really joined the digital world. And then I find out that, like, most young people have ditched Facebook a long time ago because mostly old people like me took over too much, and they're on all these things that I've never heard of. I mean, I don't know. There are these things that I keep hearing about, like Reddit and Twitch and all these things that I've never checked out. No, I'm not a Twitter person at all. There's an example of why I'm a digital adapter, because I'm sort of in between these two poles, between digital native and digital immigrant. I embrace lots of things. I think I'm pretty comfortable with technology, but there's things that I still sort of resist just because I'm not interested in it, not because I'm afraid of it. So yeah, Twitter, I haven't joined up with that yet. I can still be old school in terms of liking and preferring email, though that's kind of considered old technology now. People think of email as simply something that they have to do if it's work related or school related, but hardly anybody emails each other anymore because, right, you have Facebook for that. You have text for that. You have all these different ways to contact people immediately without having to write an email. Someone asked me, do you have a Juno? What's a Juno? Someone mentioned that they still prefer face-to-face socializing. Yeah, I hope that's true. The great thing about digital technology is it does make us more connected in terrific ways, but it can be harmful if somehow that substitutes for what still is important, which is meeting people. That's another thing that Full Sail places a lot of attention on. So people, depending on their degree program, by the way, some people take specific courses in speech or communication, right? Because we still value these skills. That's why there's a required English course, because writing skills are still needed. So yeah, these kind of traditional old school things are still valued. Oh yeah, yeah, that's actually what I thought of, Josh, when you mentioned Juno. But I just figured that this must be something new that you were talking about. Yeah, I remember Juno, the free email providers. Yeah, I had that on Windows 3.1. By the way, if there are some people who are too young to understand these references to Windows 3.1 or Juno or CompuServe or GeoCities or the early days of the internet, so much fun. O'Shane says something interesting. Face-to-face is overrated because people don't accept you for you, so people feel comfortable not being seen. Yeah, I think there's maybe some truth to that. Um, I think definitely based on what your personality type is like, uh, the online world can be more enriching and fulfilling, and I do like it quite a bit myself. Um, but yeah, I think there's still value in face to face, or at least at the very least, it's a skill you have to learn, even if you're not super comfortable with it. Even if there are people that you meet face to face that you prefer not to, there's still good reason to knowing how to speak to people. Yeah, as Chanda says, there should be a balance between both. And that's a good point. It's really about both. It's almost like learning two languages. It's like learning two ways to behave. It's like I act one way with my students or around my parents than I do with friends. With friends, there's a lot more cursing, for instance, but that would be completely inappropriate with students or around my parents. I don't know why my parents still hold that over me, but yeah, I still feel like a little kid around them. But it's about two modes, right? Like I know how to act differently in different situations. So I think this ability to go between the online world and what we call the real world is an important thing to have as well. So anyway, this is kind of my unique term, right? I'm a digital adapter. I go with the flow. I try my best to learn new things. So here at Full Sail, I'm comfortable hosting go-to sessions. I create welcome videos. I've learned how to use iMovie. I've used a lot of different online tools that I've discovered. I feel like I'm a completely different person in some ways, but in a good way. Um, but I'm not as comfortable sometimes with some of these things as you guys are. Um, Someone asked me what did someone just ask me in the chat? Oh, yeah, if I use Twitter? No, I don't use Twitter, and I'm not a big texter either. It's not that like I'm against text or that I don't understand the point of text. It's just I have no patience. Like I don't know. I don't want to sit there typing little things on a tiny screen and sending it to people. Plus, I am kind of like old school, or I don't know. I prefer to talk to someone. I understand that there are basic messages you can send that aren't worth a full phone call, but yeah, texting I don't quite. I do it, but I resist it. So really, this kind of last slide here is about these issues, right? Balance, about talk about past, present, and future. That I'm somewhere kind of in between these modes, right? In some ways, I'm old school and I'm kind of in the past, but in the same way, I'm not resistant to the future, and that's why I call myself a digital adapter. Some real quick things as a reminder. If you know how to take screenshots, this might be a pretty cool thing to take a screenshot of. If not, just remember to read through your assignment sheets and all accompanying materials carefully. But these are sorts of things that you don't want to forget about because you lose points on this first project. First, that you do need to come up with a unique term for your digital identity. Okay, so you're not just identifying whether you see yourself as a native or an immigrant. Second, you have to create a project that represents your identity using a Web 2.0 tool. There's a frequently asked questions document that gives examples of these tools that you can use. In addition, I've added a few more that I like. There's one called Powtoon, which is an animation tool. It's basically like, it's similar to the PowerPoint in some ways, in that it's presentation software, but it's presentation software that's animated. Maybe not fully animated, but you're able to drag in character types and have them move around on the screen. It's kind of a cute way to create sort of cartoons on the fly, but cartoons that have the purpose of delivering information in a more interesting way than just a PowerPoint presentation like I'm giving now. And Wordle and Tagxedo are two popular websites if you want to make like a word cloud, like I kind of showed you a little while back. Third, yeah, that be sure to write an in-depth explanation about your digital identity and to connect your ideas to the Prensky reading. If I go back, cancel. If I go back to those examples we were looking at before, like as much as I love this project, and she received a pretty high grade, but she lost some points in this one here because she talks about her term digitally enhanced, and she gives a pretty in-depth explanation, but there's really not a strong connection to the article. I mean, she does mention digital immigrants at one point, but it's not really a strong connection to the article. So make sure that at some level you're connecting with the ideas in the Prensky article. The requirements for the explanation, I'll bring that up in just a second. And before the activity ends on Sunday, respond to to at least two of your classmates' efforts. Okay, so it's not just posting your project and your explanation; it's also taking the time to respond to others. And to answer Joseph's question, this is why it's important, like I said, to always read through the materials. For example, the rubric is read through the assignment sheet too, but the rubric is super important because here it tells you what you need to do to get an A, to get a B or a C, or to get a D or lower, or to get a 0, which basically means you didn't do it at all. But here, for example, let me see if I can make this bigger. Was a creative image, video, audio, etc. vision produced? And you can see to get an A, yes, the student created a project that captures the majority of the characteristics of his or her digital identity. The vision was created using a Web 2.0 tool. Did a written explanation accompany the vision? Yes. The post contains an original term that captures the identity. The characteristics of the term are thoroughly described and supported from the Prensky article. Did you respond to at least 2 other students? Yes, and the student provided detailed insight and or thought-provoking questions. So the responses should be more than, oh, hey, great job, loved your project, right? You should respond to something specific that you liked about it. Or if there's something about their digital identity or their explanation that caused you to think or to ask questions, now's the time to talk about it. The goal here is to try to get the discussion board turning into a true discussion. And that happens when we respond thoughtfully to each other's work instead of just writing generic things very quickly. And there are some points for grammar and mechanics and such. So, yeah, be aware of what the assignment is fully asking for, though the checklist I just showed kind of covers the core things. Josh says he could have elaborated more. You can always go back. There's an edit function on the discussion board. Just click edit, add to your thing, or revise, and just repost. If for some reason, I don't know why the edit button wouldn't work, but you could always even just post again. Okay, so it's not like you handed it in and it's done, and you can't do anything about it. We already looked at this slide. Yay! We're actually done a little bit. I told you today it would be a shorter session. Questions? about digital literacy, about me, about what you're doing for this Wednesday. Again, the first major writing assignment that's due on Sunday, we'll get into on Thursday's individual session. I'll show you what Digo is. It's a specific bookmarking tool, and I'll show you how to use it. I'll show you how to set things up, and I'll kind of walk you through a little bit of what you need to do for that assignment. But all that will happen on Thursday. But any questions? The floor is now open. If you don't have any questions, you can say you don't have any questions. Is everybody feeling good? Yes? Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording now.